Justin Delanty, welcome to the podcast, the Broker Podcast. How you going, mate, down there in Tassie?
Great, Mark. How about you?
Well, we just got out of lockdown up here in Sydney. My job been coming to work every day, but the city's feeling much more energised, to be frank with you. You guys haven't been locked down, though, have you?
Yeah, well, we're actually one of the first places to lock down. So when the cruise ship came into Sydney,
Yep.
there were a whole heap of cases originally that came to the Bouris hospital on the northwest coast of Tassie, and we actually locked down for 4 weeks straight away. So we have experienced lockdown, but the state's been in pretty good shape since then.
So, I guess, before we talk about Lending4U, the business, the broking business, the mortgage broking business, I guess, and I just was talking to someone about property prices. I guess my question to you, Justin, is how is the property market in Tassie? I mean, it was on fire a couple of years ago. I'm a bit out of touch with it, but where's that at now?
Still on fire, Mark. Particularly Hobart. Hobart's been huge over the last 12 months or so. And it's really hard to put a finger on them. I mean, we're on the northwest coast of Tassie, based in Devonport, population 25,000 people. And we've seen property prices exponentially increase. I had a client of mine only just the other day bought a property in Devonport as an investment for $260,000. And to your listeners, I know $260,000 you don't get much for.
That's a deposit.
Yeah. But, that was 5 years ago in Devonport, and just sold it just recently for $520.
Wow.
So that's within a 5-year period, so doubled their money. So, yes, probably our property prices are catching up a little bit, but it's a unique situation. I think, you've got record low interest rates, which are impacting the reason for the property market. But you've also got self-funded retirees here tending to sort of look to get some return on their money when they can't. They get 10 basis points or something in the bank, so you can understand that. And also thirdly, people can't go anywhere. So are they spending money on property as opposed to spending money on overseas holidays? And
Are you saying, are you talking about houses, or are you talking about like detached houses, or even attached houses, or are you talking about everything across the board, like units as well?
Everything across the board, Mark. It's been, it's been really good as a broking business. It's been fantastic. One of the things, we've always struggled here in Tassie is the price of our housing has been so much lower. I think now, Hobart, I think it's either third or fourth as a median price below Melbourne and Sydney, which,
wow,
given the population, is just crazy. I think overall it's just generally far more buoyant than it has been. And when you look at it, yes, we only had a short period of lockdown, but the rest of the country's been in lockdown. I would have thought perhaps we might have seen more influence from what we call the mainland in terms of purchases of our properties, but that hasn't been the case. It's been 87% of the market has been purchased by locals. Wow,
that's interesting. Now you're a broker, and how long have you been a broker for?
I feel old now, Mark. This is going back 1995.
1995.
I started as a broker.
So 20 odd years, 25 years or so. And you don't look old enough to be in the business for 25 years. What was your background before this? What did you do?
Banking. So I was in a bank for 11 years, or a couple of banks. They went through a couple of changes over that period of time, and started in a company called Tassie Home Loans, which Tassie Home Loans is still a broking company that is
part of the VOW group.
The VOW group. Started there, became a shareholder and director of that, and sold out of that business in 2008. Then had a little bit of a sabbatical and did some training of brokers all over the country, helping out a mate of mine. And of course, then we had the GFC hit, Mark, which one of the first things that people want to do is cut costs, and training, particularly face-to-face, is rather expensive. So the income dried up a little bit, and then I took a role with the Commonwealth Bank in corporate banking. lasted there 9 months, Mark, having gone back into the massive mechanism that is the Commonwealth Bank. It just wasn't for me. And then started up Lending4U and recently had our 10-year anniversary.
So would you say you're a good example of banker turned broker? Because as you know, there's a lot of bank managers or just ex-bank staff who, especially today, get paid a redundancy or whatever the case may be, and they leave the bank and they go into broking. Are you a very good case study of one of those individuals?
Yeah, I think so. I think Tasmania is particularly, Mark, I've also had some involvement over the years. I was president of the Mortgage and Finance Association of Australia here in Tassie when we had state chapters, and also spent some time on the national board. And Tasmania in particular has a massive group of brokers that are all ex-bankers, a far bigger percentage in Tasmania than anywhere else. I can't explain that. I don't know why. But I think us going into business from a finance broking perspective, all we actually do is we've created the old bank manager model. Probably the pillar in the community that people want to come and we're here. It's our business. We're staying.
Relationships.
One of the things with banks is you get somebody that comes into the community. They're there for 5 minutes and then they're gone. People like relationships. They like stability, and I think that's one of the things that a broking business brings.
So you've got long experience as a broker and long experience as a banker, and you said something very interesting just then about relationships, but making it a sustainable relationship, one whereby and you're in Devonport, you're there, and people know you're going to be there for a long time. You're not like you're going to move from that branch to another branch across the country or interstate next month, or that branch is not going to close down, because this is your business, and you're not going to close the business down unless you might, but I mean it's more unlikely. The part of the thing that I found interesting then is the point you made about relationships, and like knowing people, knowing your customers. As a broker, do you have a sense of how important repeat business is for you and referrals, or do you do a lot of advertising to try and just build more inquiry? Where do you get most of your work from?
Look, it's a mix of both, Mark, and I think the relationship is the number one focus that we have in our business. We try and touch base with our clients regularly anyway through newsletters and other things, but we try to contact our clients every 3 years and do a review. It has been difficult on occasions, particularly when you only have a certain amount of staff at your fingertips. To be able to, we've got something like 1,500 clients. It's if I was to sit and review every client I had, I wouldn't be seeing new clients either. So it makes it really difficult. But we do a combination of both. We do advertising. We do a lot of sponsorships out in the community. And one of the things I would like to say to any business, whether it be a broker, finance broking business, if you're going to do a sponsorship, make sure you get involved with the club or the not-for-profit, because otherwise it's just a donation. It's a waste of time. So you really have to be engaged and involved, and that grows as your brand does. And Mark, you know all about brand. You know about Wizard YBR. The brand is really, really important, and you need to be ethical. You really need to be ethical, because that's what brings repeat business.
It's interesting you said that about the sponsorship. There still is sort of a rule of thumb that if the sponsorship costs me, I'll just pick a number, 10 grand for a netball team per annum, for argument's sake, then you need to spend an additional $10,000 promoting that sponsorship, either through your time and effort, that is what you just said, getting involved, and you got to value your time. If you're $100 an hour, then you got to spend so many hours at $100 an hour to support that $10,000 sponsorship. Investment. Or you've got to spend 10 grand on local radio to tell everybody that you got this $10,000 sponsorship with the netball team, but you got to support it with at least at a minimum the same amount of money to invest it. That's just a general rule of thumb. And I think what people underestimate, will probably forget to do, in terms of sponsorships, because I still think sponsorship's a great way to go, particularly in small environments like smaller towns, because it really gives you some intimacy with the town you're talking to. If you are going to do a sponsorship, then make sure you work the hell out of it. It's really important. I did it with Wizard. We sponsored New South Wales State of Origin team. And lucky for me, I love rugby league, and I was very happy to go to every single State of Origin game, and I was very happy to be at every presentation, and I try to get in as many photographs with the State of Origin team as possible because they're all my heroes to me, and I was lucky, but irrespective, and don't do a sponsorship because otherwise we'll just do donation. Don't do a sponsorship unless you are not only prepared to be engaged, but you actually are engaged, that you love netball and it may be one of your kids is playing that team or your sister or some. You've got to have a reason why you are passionate about that joint. Just don't do it, why don't we make a sponsorship to the netball team? That means stuff all. You've got to work it, and you can't work it if you're fake.
No, that's totally right. I think there's another thing that comes into it. I think as brokers, I look at it too, we make money out of our community. And if we make that money out of our community, I like the feeling of giving a little bit back, whether that's in a sponsorship form or whether it's, in your time and energy, because I think that's really important. I think you hit it on the head. In a small community, you've got nowhere to hide, Mark. You can't, you've basically got to uphold the brand and the values that go along with that brand. And I think it's really important.
And a good example of that is if for some reason, I decided to come into Devonport and I thought, not me, but I just thought, we've got to open up a branch at Devonport. Or why don't I go and do a deal with the local netball team? But I'm not there. I got a snowball chance in hell. It's just not going to work because people see that's a fake for straight up. He doesn't get a bit like say I'm standing for the seat of Geelong and I live in Sydney. People aren't going to, that's an extreme example, but people are going to work out pretty fast that you're an imposter. And that whole imposter syndrome, you've got to be careful of it. Can I ask you, we are talking to brokers and I'll, we'll declare up front that we have a relationship through Val, but I'm not asking you to speak for Val. What are the sort of things that Justin looks at in terms of, let's say he's about to become a broker in his own right and run his own brand in his own postcode or own area? What are the sort of things that Justin looks for if he is about to sign up with an aggregator as a broker? What should a young person who's leaving a broking organisation be thinking about before they sign up with a broker? What are the questions you need to ask, and who do you need to talk to? What would you do?
That's a really good one. Looking at it now with best interest duty, that's another issue that came in earlier in January. The number one thing that I think you'd want is really, really good software. Good software that provides some comfort around the compliance piece, because compliance is so big and becoming even bigger in our industry, and there's probably going to be more regulation, Mark, unfortunately. But I think that's the number one piece. I think technology is a really, really important thing. I think also, support. What's the aggregator providing you in terms of support for whether it be lead generation, whether it be a brand, for example, if it's a branded aggregator, whether it be, the support of the staff of that aggregator to assist you day to day. And maybe if you're, a young broker getting out there, you might not have a lot of business experience. There'd be people at aggregation firms that can either assist you with business planning or put you in touch with somebody that can do that for you, because planning is paramount in any industry, I think, in any business. So there's those things. Commission splits, they're important, but they're not the be all and end all. I don't think particularly when you start out. You just want to be paid adequately for what you do, and that's where I think a lot of people go wrong. They look at the money up front to start with and don't look at what's the added value or the benefits of that aggregator or that brand or that franchise can add.
That's an interesting one, because the more commissions split in favour of the broker and the less money the aggregator gets, by definition means less service the aggregator can afford to give you. And these days, your point is really important. The software and technology and best interest duty support, etc., costs money. You have to, someone has to pay for it. And if you're getting, 99% of the comms from someone who's trying to grow a comms business, like someone who's trying to build 5,000 brokers really quickly. Not that any such person exists today, but let's say someone new in the market came in to do that. Then you'd have to have the assumption that you're not going to get much back from that organisation because they can't afford to do. These days, they could be full because like 5 years ago, that entity would have got volume bonuses from the banks and they would have made their money out of the volume bonuses. But today, volume bonuses are banned. And not only that, the banks and the government and the Royal Commissions have put a lot of obligations on the aggregator to do a whole lot of stuff in relation to their broker cohorts, the people who sit under their platform. And it's becoming, as you said, it's becoming really competitive now in terms of the software and all the technology too that sits between the bank and the broker like you, that gets delivered by someone like our business, and others are doing it too. So there's no such thing. If it seems too good to be true, and it looks too good to be true, and smells too good to be true, usually it's not true. Would you say that? I mean, you're along in the tooth in this game. There's no free lunches in this game, and it's a tough business.
It is, Mark. I also see a lot of people that have decided to jump into the business, and they think it's all beer and skittles, and they think it's going to happen easily, and they think just because they know somebody that they're going to be able to write their mortgage for them. It doesn't, unfortunately, work like that. It's a lot of hard work. You have to put in a lot of hard work, like any business. As I mentioned before, there's planning. There's cash flow forecasting. There's a lot of those things, and getting back to aggregation, and we talk about that's a very low margin business now. I take my hat off to you, Mark, because I wouldn't want to be in it. I think
it's a tough business.
The margin I'm earning is a hell of a lot better than you are.
Yeah, totally.
Probably not quite as much, but
we work on volumes, but you're right, because but you might, I think it should be that way though too, Justin, because you find the client, you make the effort. Your time is the thing you're getting paid for. We don't devote any time to it as such. You're using systems and using our systems and processes that we provide, which should be done automatically in a digital sense or electronically. We spend less time on it, although we are being required to spend more time on it now through all the various regulatory environments. And as you said earlier on, we are going to get more regulated, and I think everybody should just take some comfort in that, because the more regulated you are, the more that says how important you are. Because if a mistake gets made, it's a big fella, it's a bastard, and the fact that you guys are becoming so important is the reason you're going to become more regulated. And as you become more regulated, you're going to become like lawyers and doctors and dentists and accountants and everybody else. You're critical to the infrastructure that exists in the country. Therefore, effectively, you are a profession, and you've got to expect to be regulated. And therein lies a career for people. If you're a young graduate or you're a guy at the bank and want to go out into another world looking for a career, then mortgage broking is actually a respectable career. I mean, it's much better than it used to be. Many years ago, we weren't considered to be really anything. We're like, mortgage broker, you kidding me? What's that guy doing? But today it's a proper business, and it's a career, and it has a lot of responsibility associated with it, and you can make good money out of it. But you got to, as you say, you got to stay in it forever. You got to make a commitment to it, and it is a business. Justin, could I ask you one thing? What would you say today to a young man or woman who may have just graduated from university, or may have spent a couple of years in a bank, has a bit of experience, and is thinking about becoming part of the mortgage broking industry? What would you say to them? Should they go and join an aggregator? What should they do? How would you talk to them?
I would say, Mark, the first thing they need to do is to find a really good mentor. And that mentor can be somebody that's been in the industry. They may go and work for that business. I think, I'm very lucky. I've got a young guy who works with me. He's 31 years of age. He's a terrific broker. He does really, really well, but he started with me when he was 23. He started really as my PA, and he learnt from the ground up. And I think somebody that is looking to get into the industry, if they know nothing about the industry, they might be tertiary qualified, they may know a lot about finance, economics, those sorts of things. They may not know a lot about sales, and that's part of our industry as well, is able to being a salesperson. But find that mentor, work for that mentor, get yourself established, and then see whether that's an opportunity for you to then go out on your own. But I think it's really, really difficult if you don't know anything about the industry to start from scratch, unless you've got a really good team of people around you.
And probably, if I could respectfully add to that, be patient. Don't expect to be doing what Justin's doing now in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. This is a career which can turn into a business. Be patient and make sure you just cover off every single step along the way. And it wouldn't be any different if you were going to be a lawyer or an accountant or a doctor. It takes years to establish yourself. It just doesn't happen overnight. Nothing good happens overnight. I mean, unless you're some sort of Instagram star or something like that. Generally speaking, these things don't happen overnight. You build it. Justin Delanty, the founder and CEO of Lending4U, right down there in Devonport in Tassie, one of the greatest places on earth. Thanks very much for all your time and effort, mate. I really appreciate it. We're speaking to brokers, and we're bringing to the brokers what I consider to be the best in the business. So I appreciate it, mate.
Thanks, Mark.